Kaufman Corner podcast coming at you again here, as always, Dr. Rany, Jazayerli, Soren, Petro with you. If you are catching us via the podcast, remember you can be a part of the conversation. I already got a lot of people lined up in the chat room. We do it every Sunday at 10 o'clock, although I think next week we'll get out of the way of the Kansas City Chiefs Sunday night game. So we'll go ahead and move to Monday night. So make a programming note there. We'll do the Kaufman Corner podcast on Monday night at 10 o'clock to avoid the Chiefs. We know we get a lot of both Royals and Chiefs fans wherever you might be, but you can be a part of the conversation. We've got a lot of people set up in the chat room tonight. We're going to talk about the fact that the playoffs look like they're really going to happen. The Royals magic number is dwindling. We will talk about that. What does the playoff bullpen look like? How does the playoff schedule affect the rotation? And how will that rotation look? We're talking about that tonight here on the Kaufman Corner podcast. Alec, Marsh being impressive. How does that change things? Where's he fit? Rotation, bullpen. How excited should we be about his progress here after a brief stint down in the minor leagues? What are the strengths and weaknesses of this team for October? Are they built for the playoffs? Matt Quatraro, PIcollo, are they going to win manager and executive of the year? Can they win both? We're talking about it right now here on the Kaufman Corner podcast.
This is the Kaufman Corner Podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Royals, breaking down the Royals like no one else can. Kaufman Corner is hosted by Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro. Rany is a co-founder of Baseball Prospectus, author of Rany on the Royals, and former columnist for Grantland, The Ringer, and The Athletic. Soren is the award-winning afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. Kaufman Corner is proudly brought to you by Gan Asphalt Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at ganasphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gan Asphalt Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are your hosts, Rany Jazayerli and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. Back at it here as the Royals win yet another series. Not going to win today, Rany, but they do take another series as they keep losing, teams losing. An adage that I think every winning coach / manager would agree to along the way. We used to say the playoff optimism meter. Are we done with that? Is it official? It's just about the fact that we're now ready to conclude that it is official. They are going to be playing postseason baseball.
Nothing is official until it's official, Soren, which is the corollary to Yogi Berra's adage that it ain't over until it's over. It works on both sides. It ain't over until it's over. It isn't official yet. If we're going to do a playoff optimism meter, I would say I'm at 9.5. Right. Which, the playoff odds, according to Fangraphs, are at 97% right now. But the one hang up for me, the one reason why I'm not, uncorking a non-alcoholic champagne bottle just yet is that the Detroit Tigers come to town tomorrow for a 3-game series. They are 5 games behind the Royals. The Royals have the tiebreaker on them. If the Royals just win 1 game out of the 3, they are in excellent shape. They would be 4 games up with 9 games to go, 4.5 with the tiebreaker. But if they get swept, and I'm sorry to put that out into the ether, but we have to consider all possibilities, to be 2 games up on the Tigers, who finished the season, let me remind you, at home against the Chicago White Sox. I think that would put the fear of God into all of us. So the great thing about where the Royals stand is, they do have multiple pathways now, because even if, God forbid, the Tigers sweep them and they're suddenly, breathing down their necks, the Twins are, still 2.5 games behind the Royals. There are a lot of ways that this can work out. And the Tigers, aside from that White Sox series, they still have another series at Baltimore, and then a series against the Rays. So it's not like their schedule is easy per se, but you would like to have a little bit of breathing room going into the final series of the year. So they're set up for this series against the Tigers. They're at home. They have Lugo and Reagans going in the first 2 games. But they need to win one of those 2 because Tarek Skubal is pitching the finale for the Tigers, and he is the presumptive American League Cy Young winner. So That's the only thing that keeps me from going full on 10.0. This is in the bag. Let's just get through this Tiger series. If they can take 2 out of 3, then really we can really start focusing on playoff seeding and matchups and getting the pitching staff rested for the postseason, but not just yet. And I actually think it's kind of interesting that Quatraro deliberately he went to Bubic yesterday to protect a 4-run lead in the 8th inning because the bases were loaded, but he went to Lucas Erceg in the 9th with a 4-run lead, which to my my initial reaction was that seems like kind of a waste of your closer. But then I realized he was probably going to give Erceg today off regardless. He wanted a reason to give him the day off regardless because he wants him fully rested for the 3-game series against the Tigers. Now Bubic and Erceg both have had a day off. They've got their 2 best pitchers going. So they're in very good shape, but we just need to get through the next 3 games and then I can breathe easy.
Yeah, I would agree. I love some of the numbers. They're 10, 9.9, 11, 9.7. So we've been doing our playoff optimism meter. How about this one? Here's Mr.
Debbie Downer here.
Debbie Downer, Curtis. I've ticked him up to an 8. He's all the way up to an 8, which is still pretty strong. 1 game against Detroit, we're fine, says Kurt. I think it's I think the fans are pretty rock solid. I think the numbers are now at like 98.5, right?
It was yesterday. Today was a bad day. The Royals lost, the Tigers won, the Twins won. It was not a great day from that standpoint, but it's a measure of the buffer that the Royals.
What did it put it at?
It went down from 98.8% when I went to bed last night to 97% as of now, which doesn't sound like huge. I mean, but if you reverse it, it's the odds of missing the playoffs have more than doubled, but they're more than doubling from 1.2% to 3%. So that's the point. They have such a buffer now. They can have a bad day like they did today and still be in an excellent shape. The problem though is because you're facing the biggest competition for that last playoff spot over the next 3 days. If you have 3 bad days in a row, that number is going to tick up tenfold. So, but they're in very, very good position right now.
Yeah. I will ask you this. Ask everyone if I know if I'm a Debbie Downer. They definitely agree. So Curtis fesses up to the fact that he tends to be on the lower end of the optimism meter. What was the one somebody had in here I thought was interesting? I remember somebody had a question. I thought, we got to put that out there. It's something we didn't have on the rundown that I thought was kind of interesting. We definitely saw too much of Adam Frazier. We had another comment about Garrett Hampson earlier. Is this a sign that, at 98, 97%, that Matt Quatraro is looking at the math and he's beginning to start resting the guys for the stretch run? We're seeing some of the depth of the team because he's starting to not lean for the tape, but feel like that, he can start mixing and matching, and certainly against the Pirates. Let's get the rest here against the Pirates because the Tiger series is the one that really matters.
I wish I could say that the only reason Adam Frazier was playing so much in the series was because the clearly superior starter was resting, except I don't know who that clearly superior starter was because, I mean, MJ Melendez needs rest. I don't think that's what's going on here. Hunter Renfro needs rest. I think it's just a matter of he's still mixing and matching because the Royals are a full 2 hitters short of a full lineup right now. And he's trying to figure out from one day to the next who to play. Frazier, maybe he thought going back to his old haunt in Pittsburgh would be good for him. And Frazier did hit a home run in the blowout on Friday, I believe. But no, I don't think it's a matter of rest because the guys who need the rest the most are Bobby Witt and Salvi Perez, and they're not resting because the Royals can't afford to be without them. All right, you hope that the Royals get into a position the final week of the season where those guys might get some much needed rest. But because playoff seeding matters so much, and because we can talk about like the Tigers, frustrating us because they won 2 out of 3 against the Orioles, but on the flip side of that, the Orioles losing 2 out of 3 to the Tigers means that they're still within range for the number 4 seed. Like, even if the Royals don't catch the Guardians, they're 2 games behind Baltimore. Baltimore has the tiebreaker, so they're 2.5 behind Baltimore with 12 to play. Baltimore, like I said, they do have a series against the Tigers again. They also play, here, let me pull up their schedule here. They play the Giants and then the Tigers, and then they finish at the Yankees and at the Twins. So the Orioles do not have a great, schedule, very favorable for them. So there is absolutely possibility here that if we pass them in record, you get a home series in the wild card round. And it's hard to, I don't think I have to explain to people why that's valuable, not just for the team's chances of winning, but just for the fan base to be able to actually go out and see 2, if not 3 playoff games at Kauffman Stadium. And if you're playing the Orioles, which if you're fighting between the 4 and the 5 seed, those 2 teams are going to be playing each other. It's just a matter of who hosts the entire series. And as I talked about, I think on the show last week, I think Camden Yards is a bad fit for the Royals lineup right now because it's so right-handed heavy. So I don't think the Royals are going to be in position to rest anybody. Maybe the last game of the year, their things might be settled, but I doubt that we're going to see Bobby and Salvi getting a lot of rest between now and then. And I think for the rest of the lineup, I think it's just a matter of Quatraro trying to find, a right fielder who is a good matchup on any given day. Tommy Pham is basically an everyday guy since he joined the team. Sometimes at right, sometimes at left, sometimes at DH. But I mean, that tells you how desperate the Royals are for a bat. That Tommy Pham is not just a useful spare part. He is the everyday guy right now. And it's just a matter of where he plays, and they fit in other players around him.
Yeah, no, I listen. He's that is the Rays way too, by the way, using everybody and making sure. I mean, he's got a plan. He did it early to the chagrin of some people and Adam Frazier, Garrett Hampson wouldn't come through in the clutch. It's like, why are these guys playing? I think, are we satisfied with the results of those? Bobby Wood Jr. is the only guy that's like everyday Bobby. Everybody else, can we say that the results have been pretty good based upon how he's used the roster to this point?
I mean, it's not great, but given their talents, I mean, I still think it's a misprint when I look down at their rankings and see the Royals are 4th in the American League in run score. It's a testament to just how good Bobby Witt has been, that his presence in the lineup papers over so many below average hitters. It's also, I think, though, a reminder of how much offense is down this year relative to the last several years, just around baseball. I mean, the Royals, believe it or not, the Royals rank higher in runs scored. They're 4th in the league in the American League in runs scored than they are in runs allowed. They're 5th in the league in runs allowed, which is very, above average. But you think about how good this pitching staff is, at least the rotation. And yeah, the bullpen has been, subpar at times, but they're far from having the worst bullpen of a contender. And yet, a 3.84 ERA is 6th in the league because offense is down throughout the sport. So some of it, I think, is also just kind of recalibrating what our expectations are of what a good hitter is in the year 2024. I mean, give you an example, Michael Massey, who has a 285 on base percentage, has an above average OPS. Right, he has a 449 slug, sure, but like a 285 OBP, and yet he is an above average hitter. Like that's a sign of how low offense is right now. So, Adam Frazier has been bad. Garrett Hampson has been bad, but they're not quite useless. They actually still have some skills. I think they're probably playing too much. I'm hoping come October we will not see very much of them. But
I don't think we will. And I like, do we really think we think they're playing too much because we assume that if everybody played more that they'd still do what they did now and then give more? I mean, like, don't you think there's a guy who uses all the math is using math on injuries as well? Like, they've done studies, they've had the analytics department take a look at what is the proper usage of people. They're not guessing. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, no, I think that they believe that above and beyond whatever performance you get from a Frazier or a Hampson, letting them play whatever 30% of the time, and allowing someone like MJ Melendez to play 80% of the time and not play against most left-handers adds additional value, right? There's value to be had in mixing and matching, platooning, not just platooning left versus right, but also platooning, certain batters. A fly ball hitter is going to perform better against a ground ball pitcher, all things considered. And then, like you said, limiting injuries by not playing 162 games a year, unless your name is Bobby Witt or Salvador Perez. So yes, I mean, I think there's value to it, but the value of the grind over 162 games goes away in October, right? When and that's why it's like, I hope those are guys you need to have on your roster over a 162 game season. They are also guys that you hope do not have to play in any kind of crucial situation in October.
Yeah. By the way, thank you to the folks that are hitting the like button, the subscribe button, the love button, all the buttons you can hit that are positives. We do appreciate it, Eris, putting it up there right there. Don't cost you nothing, but it does us a world of good. And also, you can always remember to support our great sponsors. If you like the Kaufman Corner podcast, our friends at Gan Asphalt Concrete and Restore Hyper Wellness are the folks that you can turn to and support them and their products because those are the folks that allow us to bring you all of our content here, which we love bringing you. In fact, we are brought to you, as I said, by our friends at Gan Asphalt and Concrete. Gan Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Get your seal coating done now before the weather turns cold. Weekends are booking up fast. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gan Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gan online at ganasphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gan Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. Feel your best every day with Restore Hyper Wellness. Cutting-edge treatments like IV therapy, cryotherapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, NAD, IM shots, and a variety of skin health services designed to help you recover like the pros. Boost energy, reduce stress, and enhance well-being. It's perfect for athletes, busy professionals, and anyone looking to improve health. First-time IV therapy is just $99 when you mention Petro. That's right, mention my name, Petro, and your first IV therapy is just $99. Visit Restore Hyper Wellness in Zona Rosa or Hawthorne Plaza at 119th and Row. Embrace a healthier, happier you. Rany, let's talk a little bit about where we're going in the playoffs, right? We're now talking about how they're 97, 98%. Let's start talking about what that means for the playoff bullpen. Are you now ready to declare what the bullpen looks like? Are we still doing a little testing, a little tinkering with what it might look like once the Royals get there?
You know what I think is fascinating, Soren? How many of the guys in the Royals opening day bullpen do you think will be in their playoff bullpen? Can you remember can you name the 8 guys who are in the Royals opening day bullpen?
Man.
How many are on their roster right now? Let's
MacArthur, Schreiber,
Uh-huh.
Not Bubich. On the active roster
Right now on the active roster, there's.
Can I look at the active roster to see who's there, and then
want to? Well, there's 3 guys who are on the opening day roster who are on the active roster today. You've mentioned 2, MacArthur and Schreiber. The third one, they just called him. They just called him back up.
Carlos Hernandez.
Nope.
Angel Zerpa.
Yep, they just recalled him.
Everybody else is a turnover.
So think about it. So the 8 guys on the opening bullpen are those 3 guys: MacArthur, Schreiber, and Zerpa. Will Smith, Chris Stratton, Nick Anderson, Matt Sauer, and Jordan Lyles.
Wow.
5 of them are gone. The other 3, the other 3 might be in the playoff bullpen, but if they are, they're probably going to be like 6, 7, and 8 in the pecking order. Like the top 5 guys to me right now in the Royals bullpen. It's pretty clear to me, at least the first 4. Ursig is number 1 on the pecking order. Bubich is number 2. Number 3, maybe Sam Long, I would say. Yeah. Number 4, based on the way he's been pitching since he came back up, is Daniel Lynch, who went 2 innings today. And what was he? Did he give up any hits? No hits. 2 walks and 3 strikeouts. He has thrown 11 innings since he's been recalled. 3 hits, no runs, 3 walks, 2 of them today, and 12 strikeouts. And then, gun to my head, the 5th guy right now is probably Carlos Hernandez. All right. But here's the thing. We haven't even mentioned the starters who are going to move to the bullpen, right? Like those. So when I talk about 8 guys in the bullpen, MacArthur, Serpa, and Schreiber right now are 6, 7, 8, but you've got 5 currently, and when Michael Lorenzen comes back, 6 major league quality starters. You don't need more than 3 in the first round to start because only 3 games.
Right.
And we'll get to the second round in the moment.
And for people who don't know, you can change your roster after each
round.
So
Yes.
you're not setting it for the whole run all the way through the World Series.
You set a new roster, 26-man roster. Right now the Royals have a 28-man for September. And right now their split is 15 hitters and 13 pitchers. I assume they will go 14 and 12 in the playoffs. But it can change from one round to the next. So 14 and 12 would mean they'd only have to take one position player off of their roster. I mean, they may go 15-11 because they're trying to patch, Vinny Pasquantino not being on the roster with all 3 of Pham and Gurriel and Robbie Grossman. And in the first round, when you only need 3 starters, you could still carry 8 relievers. I think 15-11 may be a possibility. 14-12 maybe in the later rounds. But let's say they carry 11 pitchers, 3 starters, 8 relievers. The way it works, the first round is 3 games in back-to-back days, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. October, I think, 2nd or 1st. I think it's October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. All 4 wild card series are played on the same days. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is just it's like the NCAA tournament first round, 4 playoff games every single day. So you play 3 games.
Which, by the way, for a sidebar, can I say is awesome.
I think it's very cool. Makes me, wish I didn't have a day job. I've already put clamps on my schedule after lunch until I know exactly when the Royals are playing. So, but that definitely is the time. If you're gonna have an elective surgery to have that the morning of the first day of the wild card round, because you can just sit on your butt and watch nonstop.
Can I just say that I'm glad to see that the medical community still has its priorities in line. My first child was induced because our OBGYN, is that what it is? Was a Cardinal fan and was going to go down to the World Series, and we had to decide. It was the Carlos Beltran Met versus Cardinal NLCS, and we're going into Game 7 of that series, and we had to go down and be checked in before that game was going to be over, because if the Cardinals won, he was going down there. We had to induce because, this whole big ordeal, and I spent the whole game with my wife going, so are they going to win? Do we have to go? I'm like, we have to go. It's baseball. Well, how much is left? I'm like, 5 innings is left. Like, this is not, no one's up 40-10 in the second quarter of a football game here. We're going to the hospital. Here we go.
I feel so much better about my own decision. Nothing that I do is remotely comparable to inducing labor to accommodate my schedule. I may just be, moving an acne appointment around or something. Like, I think my patients will understand.
Yeah, Matt gets it. Mole removal. Wait until November.
Yeah. No. Okay. Not a ton of absolute emergencies in dermatology, fortunately.
Apparently, Coppin's a teacher. I'm thinking about calling out. Sorry, students. See you on Friday.
I mean, look, it's not my fault. They changed the wild card round from 1 game to 3. So, but yes. So it's back-to-back games, but it's only 3. You only need 3 starters. We can assume the Royals will be starting Lugo and Reagans in some order. I would start Reagans 1 because I like the idea of having a lefty as if I need somebody to work in in the Game 3 with the season on the line and extra innings or whatever, I'd probably rather go with Reagans than Lugo. But you can, either order is fine. We've talked about this, the way they've been pitching recently. I think Waka is the obvious number 3 right now over Singer, in part because Waka's been pitching better, in part because I think Singer might be a little bit more useful out of the bullpen anyway. But that's my point, is for the first round, you put Singer in the bullpen. Now, you also have Lorenzen, who we haven't seen yet. He pitched, he's made 2 rehab starts. He pitched well Friday in Omaha. However, Andy Rogers reported he did come out of the game. He reported a little more soreness than they were comfortable with, I think, in his hamstring. So he hasn't been activated yet, because I assumed after that he would be in the rotation. He's not ready yet. But the reason why I want him back is because, to me, the guy I really want to see as a late inning weapon is Alec Marsh. All right, Alec Marsh, quality in the rotation has not been, at the level of those other 4 guys, but he's been one of the best 5th starters in the game. And his strikeout stuff. I mean, his last start, he struck out 11 batters in 5 1/3. And the Royals, the bullpen, they've solved the issue of the late inning bullpen with the acquisition of Ursig, with Bubic coming up, and the way he's pitched now, a strikeout to walk ratio now at 31-1. But they still have some need for depth. So I'd love to see Marsh get 3 or 4 outings in the bullpen the last week of the season to see how well he adjusts. The fact that Daniel Lynch came up straight out of the rotation in Omaha with no bullpen, practice down there, came in and has been lights. I don't want to say lights out, but I mean, his stuff has been better. He has been good. He's been better than anything else the Royals have had in that bullpen from day one. Makes me optimistic that Marsh can do the same thing. I'd like to see him get a couple of outings, but I'm very comfortable with him working the 6th or 7th inning, game 1 of the wild card round. And so now you've got the Lynch and Bubic are the converted starters. Sam Long and Ursig are the longtime relievers in the bullpen. And then you move Marsh there and maybe even Lorenzen. That's 6 guys. And then Brady Singer, 7. And then Carlos Hernandez is kind of your break glass in case of emergency guy, is the 8th guy. I'm not even sure MacArthur, Serpa, or Schreiber will be on the active roster. So it's an incredible turnaround of the bullpen from April to October. But it's not unprecedented. This is what teams do. This is why you can build a bullpen on the fly throughout a season. But in the Royals' case, the fact that their rotation, is so deep, opens up an option that very few teams have, which is to just store their 4th and 5th and 6th starters in the bullpen come October.
Yeah, I think what's impressive will be if they've turned Carlos Hernandez around, you turn Daniel Lynch around. I mean, these are guys that have kind of been given up on in some way, shape, or form. I know the 100 miles an hour of Carlos Hernandez always had people intrigued. Daniel Lynch's lack of velocity. I mean, we're kind of like, if you can't make it go as a kind of a junk ball, multi-pitch guy as a starter, you're certainly not going to come back and, a couple of miles per hour wasn't going to be enough for him. He's been an amazing turnaround, and a great credit to that coaching staff, and certainly a great credit to Daniel Lynch, first and foremost, for the work he's done to make himself effective back there and embrace the role, not sit around and sulk and, kick the can all over the place because they put him back into the bullpen. But, and then Alec Marsh, a guy that got sent down. I mean, how many times do we see the Royals that send a guy down and it would do no good? Like they're going down and coming back better. Daniel Lynch went down, came back better. Carlos Hernandez went down, came back better. Alec Marsh went down, came back better. And now I'm with you. Like I think Alec Marsh to me is the most intriguing. I know you've been very high on him all along. That looks like it could be a 2+ inning weapon, so that if you get a grinding session and Michael Wacha can grind his way through 4 2/3 and you're in a 2-2 game, he doesn't need to see the third time of the order because you can go get 2 1/3. From Alec Marsh, and then you're down to 8-9 in your scenario. Bubic, Ursig to finish it off. I mean, that to me is the most exciting part, and that's what. Like, I know we're going to get to this in a minute, but that's important if you want to win playoff series, right? Like,
100%. But also, it's also the way you use them, and the order you use them, how aggressive you are using them, and that's why, to me, in some ways, even though it was the most frustrating game of the week, the finale against the Yankees made me feel really good about the way the Royals and Quatraro are sort of prepping for October. Now, this is the game the Royals lost in extra innings, 4-3. And if that 3-game series had been like the wild card round against the Yankees in New York, like we would never get over it. Like it was a terrible series to lose if it had been like a playoff round. To have the final game where Cole Reagans makes one mistake and it makes it to Juan Soto after Juan Soto had fouled the ball off his ankle and couldn't swing, and Soto hits a 2-run home run to give the Yankees the lead, and then the Royals come back and then they take the lead in the 10th inning, and MJ Melendez has a chance to throw out the tying runner at the plate and end the game and makes a terrible throw. But lost in all of that is that in the 8th inning, with the game tied, Quatraro went to Lucas Ursig. Not just in the 9th inning. It wasn't that long ago. We're trying to get trying to get managers to use their best reliever in a tie game on the road in the 9th inning was like an impossible task. He went to him in the 8th inning because the top of the lineup was up. It was Gleyber Torres, Juan Soto, Aaron Judge, Jazz Chisholm, coming up for the Yankees. He went to Ursig. He gave up a 2-out single to Judge, but struck out 2 guys in the inning. Came back out and threw a second inning in a tie game. The Royals had the day off the following day, right? But we're going to have a lot of off days in the playoffs too. So like the idea that Quatraro understood tomorrow's an off day. This game's important. He went 2 innings with Ursig. Then he went to Bubic in the 10th inning. Now, here's the other thing: is that game was very frustrating because of the zombie runner that goes to second base in extra innings. Right, the Royals scored a run with the zombie runner in the top of the 10th. Bubic came in. The Yankees moved their runner over to third on a bunt, and then he scored on the sacrifice fly where Melendez didn't throw the guy out at the plate. And then in the 11th inning, the Royals didn't score their zombie runner. The Yankees did with the infield in. Otherwise, it would have been probably an inning double play. The thing to keep in mind, as frustrating as it was at the time, the zombie runner goes away in the playoffs. There are no zombie runners in the postseason. It's normal baseball in the 10th inning and beyond. But the point is that Quatraro went to Bubic. He went to Ursig for 2, and then he went to Bubic for the 10th and the 11th inning. Like, he understands those are his 2 best pitchers. He put them in the game even, when they didn't have a lead. He went to his closer, his quote-unquote closer. He used them as a stopper. I was so impressed with the way he understood. These are my best pitchers. This is not the time to pussyfoot around with my 3rd or 4th reliever. That hopefully come playoff time. I mean, frankly, we can talk all we want about is Carlos Hernandez or James McArthur going to be the 8th guy in the bullpen. In an ideal world, there's no reason the Royals will ever have to go more than 4 or 5 deep in that bullpen depth chart between the starters that they have and the relievers they have at the top of the depth chart. So if they use Ursig like they did, they use Bubic, and then they have Lynch and Marsh and maybe Sam Long, to mix in. That's all they really need, right? Their pitching will match up, I think, with anybody in the postseason.
Yeah, no, I won't go that far. I can't say it'll match up with anybody in the postseason. I don't think we have enough of a track record of some of the people you're talking about. I think it could match up. Don't you think you got to qualify that statement a little bit? Like, we're not talking about Andrew. Like, I had a buddy over today, and we were watching. We had all the football on, and we had the Royals on, and Lynch came in. He's like, "There it is. Andrew Miller's in the game." And I'm like, he's 6'6" and he's left-handed.
Yeah, that might be a little bit pushing it. I love Andrew Miller, man.
Here ended the similarities between the two. One, Andrew Miller was much more highly thought of when drafted, although both were highly thought of. Andrew Miller was a 1-1 candidate in his draft class, and he was a little more electric and threw harder and those kind of things. But the point being, like, it's not just like, 10 years from now, we may look back and go, wow, look at Alec Marsh. I mean, that guy was a stud. He was, Diet Mark Gubiza for 5 years for the Royals. And remember when he broke in at the playoffs? I mean, I remember Pedro Martinez throwing BBs for the Dodgers out of the bullpen when he first came up. If you're a fantasy nerd and you were grabbing him, he was tremendous. They broke him in as a reliever. Then he got traded to the Expos and kind of became Pedro Martinez. In fact, throwing 10 no-hit innings in a game. Then he became the starter. Like, when you saw Pedro Martinez throwing BBs for the Dodgers, out of the bullpen, you might have been like, okay, well, this is, what a great reliever, right? Or I don't know, we'll see where he's going to go from here. Well, now at the end of his career, after you see what Pedro Martinez became, you're like, well, of course he was lights out when they used him in that role, right? Time will tell. So many of these guys are so early, like, maybe we will look back and go like, oh my God, J.J. PIcollo was even greater than we thought because he brought together all these young pitchers that all clicked at the same time. If Alec Marsh clicks now, and Carlos Hernandez clicks now, and Daniel Lynch is clicking now. Daniel Lynch, they've been trying to get to click for 3 years. If they found the role and are making it work now, wow, bravo. Let's go, because that's incredible. But I think you're giving, and I think that's why it is going to take more of a managerial touch than maybe, to say, well, they've got a bullpen that can match up with anybody. Are we really ready to go there?
I'm saying a pitching staff.
Okay, even that. Are we really ready to go there?
Well, I kind of am.
Okay.
With the caveat that assuming our pitchers are going into the postseason in full health, right? Where we've talked about this all season long, right? Is Seth Lugo's, career high in innings, Cole Reagan's career high in innings, et cetera, et cetera. A couple of weeks ago, that would seem to be a concern. Now it seems to be a little less of a concern, but that's the thing. When you get to October, sometimes guys are gassed, and you don't know that till they go out there and give up 7 runs in an inning or whatever. But when it comes to the postseason, depth matters a lot less than star talent, right? You have two really good starters that can carry you a long way. So consider this. I'm looking at the pitching staffs for the Orioles, the Yankees, the Guardians, the Astros. I don't know who the sixth team will be yet. We'll hold that off. The Twins, the Tigers, who knows? But those four teams, how many pitchers, how many starting pitchers on those four teams have a FIP of under 3.5? I'm using FIP instead of ERA to look at to isolate their actual like skill level of the pitcher. How many of their starters on those four teams combined have a FIP under 3.5?
Sorry, I was looking something up.
So how many starting pitchers have a FIP under 3.5?
In all of baseball?
No, in the four teams, the Orioles, Guardians, Yankees, and Astros. Those four teams, one of those fours we're guaranteed to see in the first round.
Well, I know the Yankees starting pitching's falling apart. The Astros have got to have several, I would think. The O's, one or two. Guardians, I'm going to say none. I'm going to say 5.
1.
Oh, come on. Really?
Framber Valdez on the Astros right now, his FIP is 3.15. Nobody else in the rotation. The best on the Yankees, Luis Hill is 3.82. Corbin Burns for the Orioles, I think, has their best at 363. Tanner Bybee is at 366.
Corbin Burns, is that high?
I mean, now, granted, that's this year. Some of these guys I would argue are maybe better. For the best example would be Garrett Cole, who has a 403 FIP, but he's come back from injury. He's been homer prone this year. But if Garrett Cole goes out there and throws a 3-hit shutout in the playoffs, is anybody going to be surprised? Of course not, right? But the point is, there isn't a classic number one starter out there on any team. The closest I would say to me is Burns. Framber Valdez is unique because his motion is. He's such an extreme. He has an extreme vertical angle on his fastball, which makes it's why he seems to have like a no hit bid every month or two, including against the Royals. So Valdez does actually scare me. But the reason I bring up 3.5, Seth Lugo's FIP right now for this year is 327, and Cole Reagan's is at 299. Right, those two guys have legitimate. That's not just looking at their ERA. Right, that's because the Royals have a good defense. That's helped them. Sometimes you just get lucky with men on in scoring position or whatever. No, their actual peripheral stats. They have a top 2 starting pitchers this season better than any top 2 for any of the other contenders. Now, in a short series, anything can happen. But I'm just saying they've got the top 2. They at least have a bullpen that is going to be middle pack. I mean, they're the better. There's certainly some contenders, I think, with the worst bullpen. They don't match up to the Guardians, right, with Emmanuel Clase, and they roll out a new cyborg reliever, it seems like, every year behind him. But I think it's comparable to what the Yankees and the Orioles and the Astros have. So I think pitching-wise, I'm not worried. It's really just, will the offense come through or not? Because their offense is definitely springing a bunch of leaks.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. By the way, first time IV therapy is just $99 when you mention Petro. That's right, mention my name. And when it comes to a Restore Hyper Wellness, it's just $99 when you mention Petro for your first IV therapy. We are proudly brought to you by our friends at Restore Hyper Wellness. Feel your best every day with Restore Hyper Wellness. Cutting-edge treatments like IV therapy, cryotherapy, hyperbaric oxygen therapy, NAD, IM shots, and a variety of skin health services designed to help you recover like the pros. Boost energy, reduce stress, and enhance well-being. It's perfect for athletes, busy professionals, and anyone looking to improve health. First-time IV therapy is just $99 when you mention Petro. That's right, mention my name, Petro, and your first IV therapy is just $99. Visit Restore Hyper Wellness in Zona Rosa or Hawthorne Plaza at 119th and Row. Embrace a healthier, happier you. Gan Asphalt Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized, full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems? They've been making them disappear in KC since 1994. Don't risk accidents and liability in your parking lot. Get your lot restriped today. A brightly striped lot will cut down on accidents and keep your lot as safe as possible. Find them online at ganasphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gan Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. And I will remind you that the seal coating is booking up fast. In fact, even weekends are booking up fast with Gan Asphalt and Concrete. So make sure you, if you need any work done on your parking lot, if you own or manage a parking lot, ganasphalt.com. Get that in quickly. 816-484-3338. It's an important time for you and your parking lot. As the weather gets colder, it starts slowing things down for what Gan Asphalt and Concrete can do. So find them online at ganasphalt.com. The playoffs, the schedule, the rotation, we've talked about how it sets up, and how the roster looks. Is that a strength for the Royals? Right. So we talk about strengths and weaknesses going into the postseason. Are the Royals, or would you now say, because this is what I talked about, we'll get to this in a little bit, I would have told you, back in June, July, that the Royals are absolutely not built to go anywhere in the playoffs, and I've contrasted that to 14 when they were I'm like, man, if they can get in, I like what this team can do. It was a different time even just 10 years ago in the postseason. The Royals bullpen, to me, looked like, wow, they've got multiple Mariano Riveras. And I know how dominant Mariano Rivera was for the Yankees, but multiple guys, if you stretch those guys out, wow, you can shorten this game. And then they also had the frequency of contact hitters that don't strike out. So if you're going to face pitchers that don't walk you around the bases, guys that can put the bat on the ball were important. That's why the A's, I think, have always been built for the regular season. That Royals team wasn't necessarily built to get there, but if they got there, they were going to be hell on the wheels. And I think that's why in a 5-year period, they only made it to the playoffs twice, but both times they made it, they went far. Is this team built for success in October?
So they are, I think they're definitely more set up for success now than they were 2 months ago, because again, Ursig, the trade for Ursig, they traded for Hunter Harvey, and God knows if we'll see him again this season or not, but at least Ursig has been a huge impact. And then again, the return of Chris Bubich, who we were very hopeful would pitch well, but we were basing that on essentially 2 starts that he made last year where he looked like a new man before he blew out his elbow. We didn't know what we were going to get. It's not, Bubich's velocity is not elite. In fact, I think Daniel Lynch out of the bullpen has been throwing about a mile an hour faster than Bubich. But it's that slider, which he basically unveiled last year to such great effect right before he got hurt, that has come back with him to the bullpen this year and has made him a weapon. So from that standpoint, they're more set up. My concern, if anything, is that they almost have too much starting pitching, right? In the sense that nobody cares about your 5th starter in the postseason. Nobody really cares about your 4th starter that much, especially in the American League this year. And here's why. So I mentioned the first round, right? There's 3 games in a row, then a day off. In the second round, this is really weird. So I believe this is straight off of MLB's own website, but my understanding is that the 2 American League playoff series will begin on a Saturday. So they play the wild card round Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They get a day off. Saturday, they play game 1 of the division series. This is a best of 5 now. So after game 1, they have a day off. Then they play game 2 on Monday. Then they have another day off. The teams change locations because it's a 2-2-1 format. So whoever hosts the first 2 games, then they switch parks for games 3 and 4. Games 3 and 4 will be on back-to-back days on Wednesday and Thursday. And then they have another day off, if need be. In game 5, if necessary, they return to the original park on a Saturday. So it's 5 games. Potentially, you're playing 5 games with days off after games 1, 2, and 4. 5 games in an 8-day stretch. You don't need necessarily more than 3 starters for that. In fact, in theory, you could start your game 1 starter in game 4 on full rest and your game 2 starter in game 5 on full rest. You could literally use 2 starters for 4 of the 5 games. The problem with that is that your game 1 starter in the wild card round would have only had 3 days of rest at the beginning of the division series. So basically, whoever starts game 1 of the division series probably cannot have none of the guys who started in the first round are going to be able to work on full rest for game one. So if Cole Reagan starts game one of the wild card round, he's not going to be able to start game one of the division series unless they start him on 3 days rest. I don't see them doing that suddenly. He can certainly start games 2 and 5. But it almost means that like you're going to have to use your number 4 starter in the first round. And I think this is deliberate because they're trying to give the teams that have earned a bye in the wild card round, the top 2 seeds, some inherent advantages. And one of them is that by playing 3 games in 4 days, the wild card teams are going to have to start a 4th starter potentially in game 1 of the division series. But regardless, you can get away with 4 starters. So the fact that the Royals have a Marsh and a Lorenzen backing up the 4 guys they're 4 qualifying starters, it doesn't seem like they're set up well for the postseason, except that we think they can be weapons in the bullpen. To me, that's the wild card, right? Is that if those guys can be effective bullpen weapons, I think the pitching staff is actually pretty well situated for the playoffs. But it will require a manager who is aggressive about using his guys in the right situations, using his best pitchers in the most important situations. Because the thing that mitigates the weakness of the other teams, all those teams I talked about with only one really high quality starter, that wasn't there 10 years ago when the Royals were back in the last time the Royals were in the postseason, is that really right after, in part inspired by what the Royals did with Herrera and Wade Davis and Greg Holland, between 2015 and about 2017, 2018, the paradigm for how you use pitchers in the playoffs completely changed. I mean, it was considered, I don't want to say controversial, but it was not considered controversial when the A's stuck with John Lester into the 8th inning in the wild card game to face hitters for the 4th time. Forget 3rd time or through the lineup, 4th time through the lineup. If that game had happened even 3 years later, there's absolutely no way on earth John Lester.
But that's I agree, but no one's doing that now. I mean, that was because managers would walk out there. They managed for the post game press conference. Well, he's my ace. I'm we're going to stick with him. And now we know that the math community, the analytics have overwhelmed the old school tobacco spit manager, with his feelings and his satin starter jacket and what his gut tells him. They've been overwhelmed by the math, and nobody would even begin.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying it's so changed so much that the Royals' advantage with having Lugo and Reagans is mitigated by the fact that any team that's throwing a marginal starter out there, he's going 2 innings. Like, forget 4 or 5. Like, he's basically being used as an opener. Like the Guardians, Tanner Bybee will, he'll probably go 3 times through a lineup, right? I don't even know who's going to be backing him up in the rotation, but whoever it is going 1 time through the lineup at most. And then they're turning to, they've got at least 3 guys in their bullpen with an ERA, actually 4, with an ERA of 2.03 or less. All right. Like they're going to go wave after wave of reliever. Now in the first round, it's a little more interesting because it's 3 games in a row. Right. So they do have to be a little bit judicious. So I think the Royals may have a little bit of an advantage in the wild card round because there's only so many times it's very, it's hard to use a reliever 3 days in a row and expect him to keep his effectiveness. But that division series round where you play 5 games in 8 days, teams, from the Royals' perspective, that could be a problem because if a team has a deep bullpen but no starters, doesn't matter. You're not going to see any of their starters. They're going to be used as a reliever for 1 time through the lineup as an opener, and then they're going to just hit you with reliever after reliever because after 3 of the first 4 games, there's a day off. Like you could use, the Guardians could use Clase for 2 innings in game 1, game 2, and game 4. Like that's a lot, right? For a closer, you could throw 6 innings and actually you could throw 2 innings again in game 5. So that to me, first round, I think the Royals are well set up for. The second round, not as well.
I agree with that, but don't you agree? Like when you talk about the Royals have too much starting pitching, there's too much depth. Like how far do you think they're going to go with Reagans and Lugo? Like this idea that they're going to go 7? No.
No. Well, I hope not. That's the thing. The temptation is to say these guys are are aces, and they are, and letting them go through a lineup, more than 2 times, fine. But like there have been a few times this year where they have let Reagans and Lugo pitch into the 6th or the 7th, and things have fallen apart very quickly. Like they've pitched very well for 5 innings, maybe even 6, and they they try to go to the well one more time and it doesn't work out. And I think
Good.
Quatraro has to be very careful not, to the first sign of trouble to get them out of there. And the fact that they, their regular season resume should not matter in the 6th or 7th inning of a playoff game.
Yeah, but I mean, don't you agree that they're not likely to see the third time?
I mean, the danger is, in so much as there is one, is that they've been so good, right? That it allows, a manager the comfort of, well, I could trust this guy the third time through the lineup. I brought up the John Lester thing. It's, to me, it's ironic. John Lester had been the Royals' bugaboo for so many years. He had thrown a no-hitter against them, and
Right.
it actually backfired. It actually worked out in the sense that I think it gave Bob Melvin, the A's manager in that game, a false sense of comfort that he could stick with Lester. And it ultimately cost him in the 8th inning dearly because he left him out there for so long. I don't think we're seeing those guys in the 8th inning, but they really shouldn't stay out there in the 6th or 7th if they're in danger and the Royals have a rested bullpen.
I agree. I think you do have to be careful about, are you going to bring in an Alec Marsh into traffic, and the guys on base?
That's fair. That's like the Giordano Ventura game.
Yeah.
Like, you don't want Alec Marsh's first experience out of the bullpen to be mid-inning in a playoff game.
But if it's a leverage situation, that might be a Schreiber, that might be a Chris Puvich, that might be a specialist to get whatever, and you can burn through a number of guys because okay, we're going to burn through their pinch hitters here, and then we're going to turn around. I know everyone's got to go 3 batters, but you start going through it, you start limiting their options a little bit later on. But I mean, now more so, I find myself, during Major League Baseball playoffs, since it's been 9 years since the Royals were in it, conversations we end up having on the radio show is, they're criticized for going too early. You got a guy who's dealing, and they play by the math and say, okay, third time through, he's coming out, and then the bullpen's not there, and the manager's criticized for taking him out too early. I think that's more likely here, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be what probably decides the playoffs. I mean, ultimately, is like, when every manager chooses to go to the bullpen and whether or not it works. And some of it, sometimes you make the right decision and it backfires. I mean, I remember how the Rays catching hell for taking out Blake Snell in the World Series that was that against the Dodgers, I believe, in the final game where he had like a one hitter going, and they took him out. It was the right move analytically, and I think the Rays still stand by it, but it didn't work. Right? Sometimes you make the right move and you bring in the reliever, and your starter was fried, but the reliever gives up the lead, and that's what happened in that game. So sometimes you make the right decision and you still get burned. But I think ultimately when Quatraro goes to the bullpen and whether or not it works is going to determine how far this team goes.
Let's finish with this. Quatraro, JJ, are they winning manager and executive of the year? Can you win both in the same season, or does it have to be one guy's more valuable than the other one?
I mean, they certainly can. They're separate votes. If I had to,
I know they can. Right. It's like when I listened to Dave Tobe this week saying, well, it's their choice. Yeah. It's also your choice if you want to kneel at the 1. It's your choice. That's no one's going to do that. Right. Like my point is, is it one of those, the 2 MVP candidates on the same team rob each other of votes type of thing that like, it's going to be like, well, I can't give, I think I think they do hurt each other on this because I think it's highly unlikely that they're going to sweep both awards. I think people are going to want to say, well, I'm not giving both awards to the Royals.
Well, so the tricky part here is, in my understanding, so Executive of the Year is a new award from Major League Baseball. Only started about 6 years ago, and they only give out one for all of baseball. It's not one per league, right? Manager of the Year is one per league. So from that perspective, it's going to be harder. My suspicion is if I had to bet on one versus the other, I think Quatraro probably has the better chance of winning just because manager of the year almost always goes to the team who exceeded preseason expectations by more than any, by the most in that league. And in the American League, I mean, what team has remotely come close to exceeding expectations more than the Royals, who, have already won 26 games more than they did last year, probably going to end up with at least an improvement of 30. I've heard some people say that Steven vote with the Guardians because they're in first place, and most people didn't see them being a first place team, but I don't think most people thought they would lose 90 games either. And they're not that much farther ahead of the Royals. And I think, what the Royals are doing is historic. 106 losses to the postseason is
It
historic.
is,
So
and I have absolutely nothing negative to say about either one of them. They're both absolutely worthy of it, and frankly, I think both deserve watching this team game in, game out. I think they both deserve the awards. I think what
I
AJ
think you can make a very compelling case for both of them. Like I said, because there's one in each league, I think Quatraro's got a much better chance from that perspective. And I think there may still be a perception in the sport that did JJ just get lucky, or did JJ get hit all the right buttons, but like we want to see it again. I still think there's actually a pretty good chance that JJ will win because
Well, I think he wins. I think he wins because I think along the way he also gets credit not just for this year's moves, but the Cole Reagan's move and all that. Like
right.
he started making good moves even last year, and I think I think he'll get some credit for that as well. And I think Quatraro has been masterful because for all the great moves that JJ made, this is a team that I still think the margin is razor thin. And Matt Quatraro's done a masterful job. They've both been great. I will say this: the one argument I would make for, somebody said AJ Hinch, but more so for like the Guardians, the Astros, for their people, is like, it's going from 70 wins to 75 is not as impressive as 85 to 90. Right, the higher up you go, the harder it is because you still got to win all those in there and tack on to it. So there is I'm not, and again, that's why I prefaced, and I'm trying to very strongly say they're both worthy candidates, and I think probably should be the front runners, both of them. I still do think, and Bart pointed out, and yes, I am aware that's two different pools, but I think some people are going to say, well, I think Quatraro deserves it, so I'm not going to vote for PIcollo. And I don't have a vote for Quatraro,
Right.
but I think it was the manager more, so I'm going to vote for this other GM. I get that it's not the same people, and they're going to split their votes, and that's where it is different. Bart's point was, I'm talking about how when you split the MVP votes, it's the same pool voting for. I get it, but I think there are some people that may look at it and say, I think Quatraro's more important than JJ, so I'm going to give my executive of the year vote to someone else, right? And so I think that's where that could be in there. But I do think, there is some value in the upper end. As great as they've been, going from 56 wins to 65 is it's a waste of time. Like it's nothing. And I think so in some ways they only won 56 games last year, but they might as well have been about 68 or 69. I don't know if people will dig that deep. That's what I believe. I think this team was better than a 56 win team. I think this year proves that. They just grossly underachieved last year for many, many reasons. But so, I mean, if they don't win it, I would say that those are reasons to vote for somebody else. That being said, I think they're going to win it.
Right. I think absolutely they could. I think my concern with JJ winning two things. One, like I said, there's only one in both leagues, and I think you could very easily have somebody look at Milwaukee and what the Brewers have done.
Yep.
Very small budget, and David Stearns, their old GM, left. Is he with the Mets now? But like they have a new general manager promoted from within, Matt Arnold, and like everybody thought when they lost Craig Counsell, their manager, to their rival, the Cubs, right? That Counsell's one of the best managers in the sport. That's going to kill them. And no, the Brewers are like running away with the NL Central. So that's part of it. I think there's just a competitor there that's not there for manager of the year. But I also think part of it is that when we say executive of the year, what are we talking about? Are we talking about for the major league team, for the organization as a whole? And if you look at the voting for the last couple of years, so many times I think the winner is a team that isn't just winning at the major league level, but has built like a tremendous farm system that has like a deep well of organizational talent. Last year it was Mike Elias with the Orioles. I mean, the Orioles, in addition to winning 101 games, have like one of the best farm systems in baseball. We're just burping out, hitting talent. Before then, it was Antonetti with the Guardians. The year before that, Farhan Zaidi with the Giants. The year they won 107 games. So I could see some of the voters looking at the Royals and being like, yes, what JJ's done at the major league level is amazing, but their farm system is still weak, and that could be a factor. So I'm not saying he won't win. I think he has a very compelling case for it. I just think that if I had to bet on one man to win an award, it would probably be Quatraro first.
Okay. Real quick, the week ahead for the Royals, they've got the 3 with Detroit starting tomorrow as we broadcast. We record this on Sunday night at 10 o'clock is when you can join us for the stream. Although next week it will be we'll move to Monday because of Sunday Night Football. Remind people who joined us late on that. Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. We're going to do it on Monday next week. But 3 with Detroit at home, 3 with San Francisco at home. Then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. What do you think for the week?
Well, like I said, just win a game against the Tigers, right? I think it's a testament to how unlikely the schedule makers thought it was that the Royals would be in the playoff hunt, that they finished the year with 9 games in a row against National League teams. Like the Tiger series is the only series they have, forget with a contender, with an American League team, right? And they just played the Pirates. So this is really the only series they have left that has playoff implications above and beyond just the Royals winning games. So, a 3-3 week would be fine if they win. If they go 2 out of 3 against Detroit and 1 and 2 against the Giants, I would probably take that in a heartbeat right now, because if they do that, they're almost certainly, their magic number right now, I believe, is 7 to clinch the playoffs. If they win, they go 3-3, but take 2 out of 3 from the Tigers. The Tigers have 2 losses. That knocks their magic number down to 2, unless the Mariners go nuts, I guess. I mean, there are still a few other teams out there. But I'll say 4-2 because they're at home and they've played well at home all season long. And again, they've got, is it Lugo who's going tomorrow? One of them is going to be pitching twice this week, either Lugo or Reagan. So they've got their starters lined up. I'm assuming there's going to be a very healthy crowd at the ballpark. Even though it is a weeknight, the next 3 nights. This is the last homestand of the year until hopefully they have some home games in October.
It is Lugo tomorrow, by the way.
Lugo, okay. So Lugo's going to pitch twice this week. They got a home field advantage. So I'm going to be optimistic. And the other thing I want to say is, every time I feel like, the Royals are staggering to the finish line, I just hope they can hold on. They go out there and they have a great pitching outing, and they have a great game. I mean, they lost. Yeah, they went 3-3 this week, but 2 of the 3 losses were 4-3 1-run games. They won 8-3, 5-1, 5-0. Like, their starting pitching continues to be so good night in and night out. And neither the Tigers nor the Giants have an offense that really scares me. So I feel like they're just going to pitch their way to 4 victories out of 6 games this week.
3 with the Tigers, who are 7-3 in their last 10. 3 with the Giants, who have lost 4 in a row. As of today, 3 with Washington, that's already been eliminated from the playoffs, and 3 with Atlanta, that's tied for the last wild card.
Right. You really hope that that the Royals have clinched a playoff spot at the very least before the final series of the year, because playing 3 at Atlanta, who will presumably be fighting for their playoff lives and are a good team, while the Tigers are hosting the White Sox, like, you want to make sure you have a playoff spot locked up by then.
Remember, we're proudly brought to you by our friends at Gan Asphalt and Concrete, serving Kansas City, the greater Kansas City area, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Find them online at ganasphalt.com. And our friends at Restore Hyper Wellness. First-time IV therapy is just $99 when you mention Petro. That's right, mention my last name, Petro, and your first IV therapy is just $99 at Restore Hyper Wellness. So for the good Dr. Rany Jazayerli, my name is Soren Petro, saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Kaufman